welcome back to another episode of Drones Down Under podcast, guys. Today is another interview podcast. We're lucky enough to have Paris Cockinos in with us today, who's from Sphere Drones. So just a quick background on Sphere Drones. It has its eyes set on a $100 million revenue company that is riding the wave of commercial drones, airborne, landborne, and water-based in Australia. Organisations are increasingly looking not just for drones themselves, but also training and support, maintenance and advice. And that's what Sphere Drones comes in and does. So I guess welcome, Paris, and thanks for jumping on and giving us your time. And g'day, guys.
Howdy. G'day. Thank you.
So I guess, Paris, I kind of wasn't an amazing intro to yourself. It's probably always best to hear it from yourself. But I guess what we're really trying to do with the podcast is understand people within the industry, where they started and how they got to where they are now. So I guess give us a little wrap about who you are and what you're doing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So I guess, thank you very much, guys, for having me on the podcast. It's extremely exciting to always kind of tell my story. And I guess where it all founded was, at age 10 myself, I was in my grandfather's workshop soldering two-air radio parts and components and all that kind of stuff. So I was always that geek. I never hung out with girls or anything like that. I was always that person that sat behind the soldering iron, flew model helicopters, crashed my model helicopters, fixed my model helicopters. And I guess life goes on from the helicopters and, enters into the journey of school. But my background's in the RC world, you could pretty much say.
Fantastic. Awesome. And what you started pretty early in that space? Yeah,
sure. So I was probably at age 10. So my grandfather was an electronics engineer. My dad's an electronics engineer. And dad himself actually used to take me to the rifle range in Malabar in Sydney. I'm not sure if anyone's heard of the rifle range out there, but he used to fly his Hirobo Nitro helicopters. I think it was called a Shuttle Plus from memory. Every Sunday I'd go out there with Dad, not to shoot rifles, but to fly model helicopters and watch the guys fly aerobatics airplanes. And I guess that's where it kind of all began for myself. Between my grandfather's workshop and the helis and airplanes, it kind of blew up from there for myself.
Awesome. And so from that point, I guess obviously school becomes part of your life, and high school and everything like that. Were you still sort of in the engineering space? Were you sort of thinking about following what your dad did as well, or?
No, to be completely honest, I told my dad, no chance I'm getting involved with him or my grandfather or anything like that. You saw the relationships and all that kind of stuff, the arguments, and that's just something I wasn't interested in doing, especially the family business. But I guess for myself, I probably took a bit of a break from all that kind of stuff and took a bit of a career, and I took a bit of an approach in my rugby. So I played a pretty decent level of rugby. I was a big front rower back in the day, and I was quite an agile fella on the field. And I was fortunate enough to play New South Wales schoolboys rugby and captain the school rugby team. Ended up at a sports fellowship at UNSW where I fell back into, I guess, the engineering and design side of things. So it's Bachelor of Engineering and Industrial Design at UNSW. And that's kind of where it re-sparked itself, I would say, in those later years after school and after rugby. Too many injuries, to be honest with you guys. The body definitely felt it.
Yeah, the battering, that would have been hard.
You don't need to tell me. I've had so many injuries from playing sport. It's not funny.
Ty, you look like a front rower.
Funnily enough, I was never allowed to play rugby. My mother always said, no, you'll end up hurting yourself. So I started playing hockey, and I got knocked out of my first game for 10 minutes to play goalie and a stick.
You wouldn't believe it looking at him, would you?
Nah.
I thought he looked like a bit like a hooker, but sure.
I'm definitely not fast enough to be a hooker, mate.
They don't need to be quick, mate. You're all good.
I'd be a front rower for sure.
Well, a hooker is a front rower, so maybe we should just get up the terminology of the rugby.
Ouch.
He's a Queenslander, so.
That's okay. No good up there. Sure.
And for the Melbourne guys, you probably have to draw pictures for us, mate, because we're all footy down here, and you probably call it footy up there. So.
That's all right.
Yeah. So I guess Paris, so you went to uni and you did all the design and things like that. What did you do after you finished your uni courses and things like that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess for myself, I finished school in 2011. So as of today, I'm 28 years old. Yeah, 28 years old. So I finished school in 2011 and founded the business in 2012. Pretty much I identified to Dad, hey, we've got a bit of an opportunity here, drones, and I think at the time it was a Phantom One. I'm not too sure how many people that listening to this podcast recall the Phantom One, but that thing was special, created a lot of issues, but it was a very manual approach to flying helicopters. And I could relate to it because obviously I was flying the model helicopter. So I grew up flying mode 1, transitioning to the mode 2 environment. So I could kind of work my way around a remote controller and a piece of product. But so yeah, founded the business in 2012. I pretty much said to Dad, hey, these drones are kind of taking off, quite literally. He lent me $10,000. We bought, I think it was about 5 drones. He had a website at the time called sphere.net.au, and I pretty much uploaded to the Shopify website, and really it just all kind of started from there. So I got to say that I was engineering and design degree. I think I received a 49 grade by the end of it. And I had to beg them to pass, but I was well in amongst, the drone side of things. And actually quite interesting, the engineering and design degree, I actually had a fantastic tutor at UNSW, which I think in 2013 or 2014, the tutor actually introduced me to one of the specialist engineers at Sydney Water. Now, some people may be exposed to our work with Sydney Water with our water sampling system that we've designed and developed, but that water sampler system was pretty much on the back end of this introduction that got made with Sydney Water, and we fundamentally went from selling those 5 drones, to selling 100 at Christmas time, to then that tutor introducing me to Sydney Water, which kind of spun out that development side of our business. And yeah, he was investigating drone technology at the time, and I was still studying at the time. And as I said, I only got 49 because I really was not paying attention to my uni degree at all. I was doing all-nighters, you could say. I was packing boxes on my desk with drones. It was an absolute schmozzle of a time.
Building an empire.
Sorry, what was that?
Building an empire.
Yeah, so that's pretty much how it all kind of kicked off. It was really that Sydney Water was that first commercial viewpoint that us as a business or myself as an individual kind of picked up, you could say, and pretty much ran with it. That kind of spun that development concept and that development team out into the realm for us as a business.
So what's the when you started it, what did you envisage that you'll be doing when you started Sphere?
In terms of Sphere, to be honest, I was 19 years old and I just sold 100 drones at Christmas time, and I packed all 100 myself. And, you look at the margins that we're making back in the day. I was a 19-year-old running around at Christmas time like, oh, my God, what's going on? I've just landed on a gold mine. No costs, absolutely nothing. My dad had a business at the time, which was, and still exists today, was selling two-way radios and communications. I was putting it on I was putting all the freight charges on his TNT account and his Australia Post account, dispatching it all. So my costs were really, really low, which was fantastic. But to be honest, I didn't expect to be where we are today. And, where we are today, I could probably go into a little bit more detail, but we're the best part of 35 team members now. So going from
amazing
that to where we are today is quite amazing.
Yeah.
So you touched on development. What did you mean by that?
Yeah, sure. So I guess we call it a project assessment within our business. So an organisation will come to us with an idea. We'll take that idea and we've got a team of industrial designers, electronic engineers, and come together and develop a solution for our customers. So in the instance where Sydney Water came to us, they had come to us, hey, we're interested in water sampling. We fundamentally took that idea, conceptualised it, commercialised it, and built out a commercial system which is able to capture and fill up 2 liters of water. So it's pretty much taking an idea and a concept into a commercialization and product environment. We've done that. We do that quite extensively. So we'll assess projects on a weekly basis as to whether or not we're capable of performing them with our capabilities. So that's, and that includes software, hardware, electronics, sensors, flow meters, all that kind of stuff. Like we'll full suite of products. I know Danny's coming to the warehouse. He falls in love with the warehouse every time he walks in there, but it's a bit of a maker space. We've got 3D printers and all sorts of CNC machining and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Do you check his pockets for drones that may be walking out of your warehouse?
The drones are too big; they would not fit in my pockets.
The other day, I questioned the guys. He actually walked out with a $0 rental, so I'm not like I had to ask a serious question about that one.
Probably wasn't me.
That's awesome.
He's just too nice, so he's charm his way out of the guys, mate.
Exactly right.
Playing the moves. Oh dear. So I guess Paris, it sounds like you guys do a fair bit within the business. What aspect of your business is probably the main part you guys are doing at the moment?
So I guess for us, we're focusing on a conversation around the customer 360. So like trying to really cater for a customer on an enterprise level on a complete 360-degree offering. So for us, if we were to look at our business and our business model, we're pretty heavily data-driven and systems-driven and process and procedure-driven. We run our entire business stack on 3 platforms, Salesforce, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, and Marketing Cloud. So everything is sitting in that Salesforce environment. And then all of our documentation, data control, and all that kind of stuff sits inside our Atlassian suite, so between Confluence and soon to be Jira. So when we talk about customer 360, as soon as you go into a customer account, you've got like complete transparency as to what their next maintenances are of their assets, what rentals they've been applied, where their service contracts are at. So how many maintenance have they got left of their service contract? Have we performed any proof of concept demonstrations, proof of technologies for that customer, right the way through to, hey, have we developed any sort of development project or anything like that, to where we're now working on a platform called Curo. Some people may not have heard of it. It's something that's pretty under wraps for us at present. We market it here and there, but we're still bringing it to commercialization. But Curo pretty much is a managed service platform that is the conduit between an organization and their drone program, with the added benefit of these managed services. So, your traditional compliance platforms that manage your flight assessments, your flight approvals, your flights would only be a very static environment. Whereas for us now, we're approaching it in a managed service concept where you've got next maintenance dates on every single one of your assets, but hey, who's performing them? Well, Sphere Drone sits there as that sub-layer of the managed service. So our business will actually be there to follow those maintenances up, make sure that those maintenances occur, reach out to the last pilot, the chief pilot, the maintenance controller, ensuring that those maintenances occur, but then also starting to look at ROI of assets. So because we're selling the customer the hardware and the pieces of equipment, we know the cost price and not the cost price, we know the retail price at which that customer had purchased it from us for, which allows us to do all the mathematics and computing around, hey, this job and this operation based on this KML of this operation assessment is going to cost blah on the basis of the lifetime of the asset. So we're starting to get into a more of a enterprise offering of the compliance tool, of that asset, of that pilot, of that organization, and how they interact with them and their drone program. And today, there's 2,357 organizations that have licenses to operate drones commercially in Australia. That's growing roughly approximately 35% year on year, which is pretty substantial. And, you have a look at those organizations that are sitting with 10,000 plus employees, 5,000 plus employees of those larger enterprise customers. They're the ones that are really crying out for this managed service type approach where someone is managing and making sure that their maintenances are being conducted of the 190, 200 drones in their fleet. All their pilots are keeping up to speed with their competencies of their training, their RAPL training and all that kind of stuff. So for us, that's where our platform and our databases of Salesforce, Service Cloud, Sales Cloud, and Marketing Cloud, and our platform Cura have that connectivity with the customer. So, yeah, I think I went on a bit of a tangent there, but it throws a bit of
that was really good. It was really good overview of exactly what you're doing. It's essentially you're from start of purchase to all the way through their operations and understanding what they're doing from a day-to-day basis and making sure that their return on investment, just on a basic example, is worth their while on the equipment that they're purchasing. And correct. Then also a layer of accountability and making sure that they're following the rules and regulations and following all the CASA regulations that we all have to follow.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And it's as we develop, if we have a look at our business model, we're working on drones at the moment, right? So drones are airborne. They're governed by CASA, the Civil Aviation Safety Authority. As you put together in, at the start of the podcast, we're looking at airborne, landborne and waterborne. I guess the conversation around purchasing of hardware, the operation of the hardware, the maintenance of the hardware, the operation of the hardware all still remains the same amongst those other platforms, you could say. However, the data source has changed. So instead of capturing flights, you're actually potentially capturing the GPS position of the landborne robot that's moving around and the site that it's operating on. So the assessment process and the operation process becomes lighter in compared to the Civil Aviation Safety Authority guidelines. Mm-hmm. But really for us, we see our business sitting as a conduit with the hardware and the operational environment.
Are you prioritizing anything as far as landborne and waterborne and airborne? Or because I think you mentioned it's not commercialized yet, right?
Yeah, so Curo has probably about 600 drones on platform at the moment. So we've got customers that are sitting on platform, a bit more today. But yeah, we've got a few customers that are sitting on platform at the moment. It's commercialized in terms of, hey, we've got customers that are sitting on the environment, but something that, we're not pushing and advocating it for just because we still got, we're still working towards a platform with an objective. And to be honest, it's probably going to be a proper January, February release on our end before we start pushing it hard with business development team that's working on Curo and Curo only. But look, it's there, it's working, it's ensuring organizations are compliant. It just comes back down to our business's objective and making sure it's aligned for market and how we want to market it appropriately.
Yeah, okay.
What's the what's the focus for Sphere for the next 12 months? Like as Brendan highlighted and as we sort of read through the bio, you're obviously doing a lot of things, which is great. You can afford to. What do you want to be known for as Sphere Drones?
Yes, sure. So I guess as I identified earlier, it's that customer 360 approach, but really focusing our eyes on the enterprise business and the management of fleets and the organizations that might not be able to facilitate that flight operation, that proof of technology there and then on their site and on their location. I guess for us, we see ourselves as a conduit between the enterprise organizations, the drone regulation, the drones themselves, and what's actually required and being able to facilitate those things. So what do we want to be known for? We really want to be that organization where a customer can go to and make sure that, hey, they can get taken care of regardless of what's required.
And how are you involved from a compliance perspective? Like obviously it's hard enough just with airborne. What sort of activity have you got a stakeholder team within Sphere that actually involved with those three different areas?
Sure. No, for sure.
So there's obviously a lot involved, right? For
there is a lot involved. So we've got you could call them like product champions or business model champions. So we've got obviously in and amongst the drone business, it's quite easy to have a solution engineer team that sits on the drone-based stuff, the airborne-based stuff. So if you have a look at our flight operations side of things, we've got a chief remote pilot, we've got a maintenance controller, we've got solution specialists that work on the development side. But then when we have a look at the landborne and waterborne side of things, we've actually got one team member per platform and per environment at the moment that they're focusing their attention on to build out the processes and procedures. And, for us, the number one thing that we're working towards at present is ensuring that we've got the processes and procedures in place from a business model environment to be able to have those in-depth conversations like we're having with the drones, the airborne stuff, because that airborne stuff comes second nature to us. That's stuff that we will continue to talk about. But obviously the waterborne and the landborne stuff is something new. We've received the Boston Dynamics spot 2 weeks ago now from a landborne solution, which is quite neat. And all we have done is we haven't shown a customer. We've shown media. That's it from a PR perspective. But we have just been focusing on learning about the system, how the system can be integrated into all sorts of workflows and processes. And same thing with the Waterborne stuff.
That's a good one that you raised, actually. Other than what you shared in the video, which looked pretty cool, by the way. Well, what are your insights into that? What's your thoughts that you're willing to share at the moment? So,
on which the
Boston
landborne
dynamics.
Stuff? Yeah, sure. So I guess for us, we very much see airborne drones, waterborne, landborne as pretty much the carrying environment of a something. So it's of that payload, it's of that sensor. What we do with it is up to the use case and the environment that those solutions ends up in. Inside on our website, we've actually just built out a segment and a section on our website that is just documenting every single use case that we're coming across and how we propose on it being conducted. So whether it's weed mapping, whether it's stockpile analysis, what are those use cases and how can they be conducted? But at the end of the day, like if you were to have a look at the Boston Dynamics Spot, the platform itself can carry up to 14 kilos, and that's the way and that's the direction we talk about. That platform is that, hey, it's got the capacity to integrate, communicate up to 14 kilos, whether it's a LiDAR sensor, a Trimble scanner, a Leica scanner, a P to Z camera, which is what it's got on there, a microphone, but then also has a capability of an arm. So, you know, when you go and if you really wanted to get down into the detail of what the Spot can do, looking at the policing environments, looking at the fire environments, it's got the ability to have that P to Z thermal camera on it, and have that combination up with an arm as well at the same time, which kind of unlocks a device that's capable of opening up doors, inspecting environments which could potentially be unsafe. But then also you have a look at being able to put a gas detector or a methane detector or oxygen sensor on that environment, transmitting that data back to someone upfield, again, removing someone from an unsafe environment.
I guess one of the main questions about the Spot with the arm and that, have you sent it to the fridge to get a beer yet?
Not yet, mate, not yet. We've got it actually in the office at the moment. We've got it doing autonomous walks. So it will do a walk around up and down the stairs, upstairs, come back downstairs, and then so we've got it doing autonomous walks and recording of those walks, which is really, really neat. And that's something that we've just done in the last week. So no beers yet. It's bound to happen, Danny, and be sure the next time you're in, we'll make sure that they can do something like that.
I'm sure we stand having a chat and this little thing pop up next to me. I'll be like, thank you.
No, exactly right.
That's cool.
That's so I think obviously, so I guess we can sort of say we've kind of covered the airborne and land-based side of things. So what area at the moment from a water perspective are you guys working in? Is it more underwater, on water? How's that looking from that perspective?
Yeah, so it's very much underwater.
Okay.
I guess the use cases that we're looking at the moment, and it's some of it's subsurface, but then some of it's probably, and when we talk subsurface, it's probably just under the 10 meter, in between that 0 to 10 meter mark, that sort of window. Inspecting and doing proof of concepts. And again, we're going amongst the same theme as to what we're doing with the airborne. So how can we enable an organisation to get up to scratch with a fleet of underwater vehicles? How can we get them up to scratch with the fleet of landborne vehicles? So there's organisations at the moment that are looking at fleets of these things, similar to the way organisations are looking at fleets of airborne solutions to inspect assets such as wharves, boats, wharves, boats. You have a look at buoys, all sorts of different environments. If I was to go into detail, I can open up something really quickly. Just give me a second.
So you're welcome to share any screen.
Yeah, you can just share whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've got some tank inspection stuff happening at the moment too, which is really, really neat. So yeah, that's cool. And then we've also got one other project underway at present, which is looking at the hull inspection on a recurring basis of some of the ships. I'm not too sure. About 8 years ago, there was a diver that actually got taken by a shark in Darling Harbour. So think about it and what the capability of that could potentially look like. You're removing the safety element from people today. But I can potentially share some of the use cases of the underwater and submersible stuff. It's all on our website. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
You're always welcome to do a deep dive on something. So
Yeah,
welcome back. And as long as Danny gets his beers, I'm sure he'll let you back in. So
yeah, 100%.
So what out of those three areas, what is the area that's most exciting you at the moment?
As in airborne, landborne, waterborne?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm probably more excited around the landborne stuff. You know, we were on a construction site last week and we were talking about a couple of like high level use cases. And if we were to think about potentially on a construction site, you've got things such as like they do a routine walk around a site once a day.
Yep.
Twice a day, sorry. Once at lunchtime, once in the morning from a safety hazard perspective. So if we were to, this is something I raised with Danny the other day, is, hey, we should actually potentially be looking at something from a modelling perspective as to being able to check defects or something that has changed or environments that have changed that we could potentially do a walkthrough and we're able to do its autonomous walk around a construction site. Because at the moment, and it's all come back down to data, right? And one of the things I see in the future is there's going to be organisations that just sit there focusing on the data, interpreting it, and analysing and gaining insight from those things to remove those safety risks. So it's definitely the landborne stuff, but I'm probably a bit biased of what I personally believe my favourite is because we received Spot 2 weeks ago. Today we had a demonstration of a system called a Persistent Systems MPU5. I'm not too sure if anyone's heard of that, but fundamentally what the MPU5 is it's a two-way radio. It's a radio, a mesh radio that sits on the robot and sits on the remote controller, and it doesn't connect. It's not connect. It's connected purely by radio over the IP, right? This thing can transmit the best part of 35, 40 Ks up to and this is what we're looking at for some of the policing environments, and what that fundamentally opens up is it's got capability for one controller to operate up to 300 plus robots, all from the one environment.
Right.
So you start looking at operational of vehicles, operations of drones, airborne, landborne. It's still using the same networking device being that, but it also has like fantastic functionality such as being able to implement LTE and not just the radio wavelength, but then also having an LTE as a alternative method if the wavelength dropped out. So it's starting for us as a business is actually unlocking a ton of educational. It's a substantial educational environment, not only for myself but for the team, because they're like, okay, well, how can we potentially apply this MPU5 system to an underwater drone? And the conversation, the underwater environment, the conversation came up today where you could have a tether. The underwater vehicle goes down, does its inspection, has a tether that sits at the top, and the radio link sits at the top of the water and just sits there above, controlling the underwater vehicle. But then it's like, okay, well, BVLOS, right? We look at the airborne stuff, 35 Ks, right? It's a substantial distance away from network, but then being able to use that have redundancy of looking at, hey, that has the LTE capacity. And this is all opened up for myself all through the landborne stuff. So we're finding amazing parallels having exposure to all three, which is an extreme upside to, what we're doing today.
That's very cool.
That's very cool.
What made you pick Boston Dynamics? Did you look at any other vendors?
So I've been hustling the Boston Dynamics team for quite some time myself. I'm just a big fan of their product, their marketing, their branding, their offering. And then when you actually receive Spot, you're like, okay, there's a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of stuff and thought that's gone into this product. Did we look at other vendors? Not really. I was pretty set in my ways. Once you see something that you like and you want to bring something and be that conduit in the Australian market, you're like, all right, this is a differentiation factor. And for us as a business, we are the first organisation that sits in that multidisciplinary environment from Boston Dynamics Holding. So our customers are innovation teams. Innovation teams are looking at landborne robots. Innovation teams are looking at Waterborne. So, we didn't look at other vendors. We kind of
Fair enough.
shot the first shot.
I wasn't suggesting you should have. I'm just curious.
No, of course, yeah. There's a range of, from a policing environment, there's a range of crawling bots. But when you start looking at walking upstairs, walking downstairs, you really start pushing the boundaries of what's capable.
Yeah. I'm sure you've seen the episode of Black Mirror that features the Spot kind of lookalikes.
Yeah, definitely.
Don't worry. It's so cool though.
I think we did an episode with Spot and the Leica, the LiDAR unit, which is pretty cool. So.
Leica Arc, I think it's called.
Yeah. So there's, from a surveying environment, obviously we're dealing with the survey customers and we're dealing with the survey industry. They're now looking at exactly that. The Leica, between the Leica and the Trimble solutions, they're the two that they're looking at. It's the integration. That's the communication of the integration as to the manufacturers actually communicate, okay, what does the integration look like? Can they confirm data accuracies and all that kind of stuff? So they're the things of investigation at present.
That's cool.
So you guys, is Sphere the only guys sort of suppliers of a Spot or Spot the robot?
So there's one other organisation that we know of at the moment that are focusing on the warehousing environment sector. So when you start looking at who they are targeting, it's not necessarily the same parallels as to. And I think there's only about, and the thing is, Boston Dynamics has been selling directly into the country themselves. But now that they've set up this distribution channel, the objective is to work with the conduit of someone like ourselves here locally in the market.
Yeah. Cool.
It seems like the model anyway to sell everything direct lately for the last few years.
I hear
until
they learn they got to have local contacts and they go, they better step back.
No, exactly right. And it's all relationship driven, right? I'm sure all of us here today, some of like our customers that we work with on the day-to-day, it's all the fantastic relationships that we've built, that keep us where we are today.
I hear along those lines, you've also partnered up with another relation in the States as well.
Yeah, so this one's actually a really exciting one on our end. So Sphere Drones is the distribution partner for Skydio, which is...
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So
did I hear Danny say that you were bringing one each for us today? I might have missed it.
I sent that email yesterday,
Yeah, I thought.
That'd be nice.
So, that's been something that we've been working on for a very, very long time. But, it's really exciting. Skydio is a differentiation factor for us, especially in the airborne space. Everyone sells DJI. Everyone does DJI. Like DJI, no. We're not about that anymore. We're here to support products that are there to support us. And that's not a dig at that, hey, DJI don't support us. But for us, it's, a bit more than just, the stock standard. And the reviews are fantastic of what the solution is and can do and capable of doing. We've actually got a unit that's sitting with two of our team members over in WA on a mine site at the moment, doing some proof of technology stuff. And the feedback I've got, it's doing an amazing job. So the Skydio solution, the Skydio team, the entire business model that they've got is amazing. And we're very proud to wave the Australian flag for them here in Australia. It's exciting.
Is your focus going to be on the enterprise side of Skydio or both the consumer as well?
No, just the enterprise. So for us, it's just the enterprise focus. The consumer model at present is not doesn't have the ACMA approvals and all that kind of stuff for the Australian market. But no doubt as soon as that all comes to light, that's something that would fall into our bucket for sure.
Yep.
Sounds good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so the Skydio solution, it's it's all happening. All the team are going through the onboarding and the upskilling at the moment, which is really, really good.
Seems like autonomy is the way to go right now.
Yeah, it definitely is. And that's something that we're looking forward to is like, okay, everything's been manually flown, well, not manually flown, but partially autonomous, you could say. But now, Skydio with the S2 and the X2, there's the docking system. I'm not sure if you guys seen that, the capability of the docking station. So you think about what that enables, that's
we already have some use cases, but we can talk about it offline.
Autonomous air deliveries.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. My brain, my team, my team tell me that I probably throw my brain at too much in terms of like design thinking and what the use cases and potential use cases are. But I've got some, the capability once you throw in a dock and permanent fixings, but then also movable fixings too. It can be quite powerful from a solution perspective. But no, the Skydio, if I was just to cap it all off, between Boston Dynamics, Skydio, they're two amazing products that we're now supporting here locally in Australia. And the businesses that we're working with on that are so professional and amazing to work with, and proud to wave the Australian flag on their behalf. So,
is your dad still involved?
He is. He's dad still runs his own business, so he's in the two-way radio and communication space. So he services a lot of the airlines and the two-way radios that the airlines use from a ground handling and aviation space. So Dad's business still runs today. Dad's a technical team member. Will get down and change the component of the PC board that failed. So he looks after, I pretty much call him my right-hand man from a technology standpoint perspective. So from an organisation perspective, between the two of us, I kind of handle the business operations and the strategy and the direction and all that kind of detail. And then he throws himself at the technical challenges that we're faced with. But hey, let's keep him away from customers. We won't go into details there.
It's great that you can. I'm sure he's proud to be part of it and see your growth over the last sort of 9-10 years. So.
Yeah, no, he's very happy. He said to me that he's going to go move to Greece for 6 months and live over there and then come back to Australia for 6 months. I said, no, you're not going anywhere.
Maybe he starts up the Greek division, mate. Never know.
Yeah, I know. He said to me the other day, I found someone in Greece. I'm like, oh, yeah, how many units are we talking? And he's like, 1 or 2. I'm like, you can go business develop that yourself and let me know how you go.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
Right.
So we have this question of where do you see the drone industry heading, but clearly that is a bit too narrow for you, mate. So how do we piecemeal this up for you? Well, actually, where do you see the growth? You've obviously identified 3 areas, which we completely agree, and no one's been ballsy enough, probably unlike yourself, to kind of take it up. Where do you kind of see the growth in those 3 over the next sort of 3 to 5 years?
So I guess if we look at the themes, and when I talk themes, we're talking so carrying heavier environments, so carrying heavier things, being able to deliver heavier things. Like I feel like the next 3 to 5 years is surrounded by these things. So carrying heavier, operating further, and then operating longer. So further and longer are very much the same thing. So you've got different fuel sources, hydrogen, lithium. You've got the beyond visual line of sight stuff. You've got the LTE concept. You've got the persistent system stuff that I was talking about. So I think a lot of the next 3 to 5 years is like pushing the boundaries in terms of longer, further, and heavier. And then just naturally with the way all the industries have been progressing is that there's just going to be constantly new use cases that come to light, to the point where regulation needs to keep on top of it. And if we talk about the airborne stuff, you're going to have larger aircraft monitoring larger assets, larger infrastructure. Is it going to be done beyond visual line of sight? Is it going to be done by a remote autonomous operations center, like a headquarters, like a HQ? But yeah, I personally believe the regulation will come to line where the fact that, hey, we'll be able to operate in the environments that we've challenged to operate with now. So I think that will lighten up. Airborne again, between manned and unmanned environments. I feel that there'll be a bit more of a collaboration and a little bit more of a lightening up of how the two communicate and how the two work. If we look at the landborne and waterborne stuff, I actually feel that regulation will fall into play with some of these things. There'll be a heavier focus on regulation, which puts us in a good position, seeing as though we've got Cura, which is a compliance platform that can manage these assets, can train these people, but then can also manage the compliance of an organisation, which then allows us to build and evolve on that. In terms of business and where businesses will fall into, I feel that some businesses will need to start focusing their efforts on events and things and themes that they're working on. I feel that there's going to be a heavy focus on the proof of technology, proof of concept of these new and evolving use cases. And there's a business there where there's experts in the field that go out and capture and look at that particular use case, focusing on some of these environments. International businesses will no doubt start to fall back on local Australian businesses because it's not possible to work remotely and operate these businesses remotely. You need to have local support, local distribution centres, local service, local maintenance and all that. Data is obviously something that comes up in this podcast quite a bit. And, just before I hopped on the podcast, you guys were navigating your way through a twin there. And I think the interpretation of the data, the analysis of the data, the insights that you can draw from the data will be a hot topic. And then, as I said earlier, operating these ROVs, these drones, these waterborne things from remote operations in different locations will be a theme of operation. So the regulatory bodies, the regulatory environment is all going to be something that needs to be thought about alongside with the charging, the recycling of those hydrogen sources and all that kind of detail. Yeah, that's a lot there, 3 to 5, 10 years. But I think if I was to sum it all up, they're the things that we should be seeing fall into play over the course of the next 3 to 5, 10 years.
Are you going to lean towards anything particularly, like to be known as, or you want to be basically you provide these three segments?
Yeah, I think what our business will end up falling into is we'll probably focus on supporting some fantastic enterprise product that works in those 3 tiers. At the end of the day, our business is built to be the conduit for manufacturers internationally, here locally, and making sure that a customer is being handled on a complete customer 360. So, right now today we've got 35 team members. I foresee by, say, middle of next year for us to sit in that 50 team member mark without hesitation. So,
cool.
And again, we'll have
you're going to have people challenges soon. More people.
I've already got people challenges, but for me, I feel that it all comes back down to culture, vision, strategy, and all that kind of stuff. And at the moment, Sphere Drones has definitely got that. I know Danny walks into the office and he sees the team and the same team that he's seen for the last 5 years that is sitting in that office working away, and that's a testament to who they are and their vision and their buying into where we're going, and also the leadership team that we've got in and amongst the business at present. So it's exciting.
Yeah, just on that, I'm curious. You obviously talked about you got a pretty large team. What sort of qualities are you looking for? Because as you well know, there's people armed with these sorts of skills out there in the market that you can just go hire, obviously. Can you talk a little bit about what you're looking for and what sort of skill sets and what your training regime looks like?
Yeah, sure. So we've got a pretty rigorous onboarding process for new team and new hires, but it all comes back down. So if I was to go through our business unit, so we've got a product team, so a team that looks at just product and how we're delivering product from integrations, a product management environment, but then also our enrichment of our product. But then we've obviously got software engineers that fall into our team, but then we've also got some sales team members that are focusing in specific industries and specific sectors and specific products. So it really comes back down to, I guess, as bad as it sounds from my position and the way we've built the business is I kind of put the product aside for a moment and look at personality and fundamentally understanding the trait and the people that work in that and how they come across as a person. So one big thing for me is if you can't look at me in the eyes and if you can't have a conversation with me in the eyes, like how can I move forward and be able to build a better relationship with you and start working on sort of things. So like some little things like that for me are quite important. And then also transparency, wherever you work for, we're happy to have some fantastic references, but being able to align in an industry or being able to align in a specialty is always fantastic. I'm a big believer of if you've been, for example, in the Salesforce ecosystem or Salesforce infrastructure, you have a very good understanding of process, procedure, and the importance of it. And if you're data first, that's something that I'm looking for as well. For me, I kind of put the product aside for a moment. I'm more of a personality judgment as to whether or not you're going to fit into our business, because like not one person knows our culture better than I would say than I do at present. And there's just a few little 1%ers that I really look for, I would say.
Fair enough.
That's all.
Really exciting. I think that sort of, I guess, reflects the type of person you are as well, your leadership skills to be able to have a team at what do you say, 35, did you say?
Yeah.
To be able to all buy in and all want to be there as well. I think that's also reflects what type of leader and I guess boss you are with that team. So I think that's a really important factor that most people maybe not overlook, but don't really think about as well. It's obviously it comes from the top and everyone buys in on the vision that someone else is pushing forward. So yeah, it's something to be, I reckon, pretty proud of.
And it's nice to be able to lead a team that's bought in a strategy in that direction too.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. And another one, coming back to Sean's question, I think a person that asks questions, you got to appreciate that in a person, and they're like for them to ask questions, be critical about what's going on and is it a benefit too. I think that's you got my mind thinking now, Sean. I appreciate that.
No, it's challenge. I mean, ourselves. So I'm obviously down in Victoria myself, in Ty. Is in Queensland working part of our business, and it's just very hard trying to find, especially when you have things coming in, trying to find people who care enough and are vested in the growth. As you know, there's always challenges, and most people demand things before they actually can provide any value. So it's finding the balance, I guess. So
no, definitely. And I think a lot of it comes back down to, have you got enough of the process and procedure in place? And that's probably been one of my biggest challenges, is we've grown so quickly that process and procedures fallen back a little bit, whereas now it's kind of like pivotal fact. I've got my weekly whips with every single team member. 35 team members, I've got a half an hour whip with every single one of them. So I've got the best part of 20 hours a week, which are one-on-ones. And I just focus on, and that comes back down to relationship building, right? So
that's true commitment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you commit to what the actions items are on the back of those meetings too, right? Mm-hmm. You haven't completed them, they hold me accountable, I hold them accountable.
Fair idea.
Also, a great way to connect with your team on a weekly basis as well. A lot changes within a week.
Oh, 100%. And even if something does change halfway through the week, setting an expectation as to, hey, you need to be communicating that not only to myself, but to the team, the channel, whoever it is. Yeah.
That's really cool. So if you're, I guess, one of the questions that pops up on our podcast a fair bit is if you were someone coming into the industry of anything that you're sort of in amongst now, what would be some of the, I guess, advice you would send to someone thinking about going to, water, land, or air-based, but what would you sort of say from a starting point? Where would you start and sort of go from?
Yeah, sure. So I think a lot of it, like for me, everyone's different in terms of how they get up to speed with things. But for me, it's very much visual and also read. Like I'm very visual, but I also don't mind reading and listening and that kind of thing. So I think there's a couple fantastic platforms and environments. So there's the drone DJ in the airborne space. SUAS is another one. I'll go away and plug Sphere Drones, but for us, it's been a big focus on education of use cases and applications. So I think a big part of it is understanding the use cases, the applications, where drones and where things are being used and where these environments are being used. And one thing that I quite often communicate is to anyone that's kind of falling into the drone space, and there's get asked quite regularly, is there roles and all that kind of stuff available, is align yourself with an industry that you're already aligned with. Obviously, the drones as an industry and as a theme is something that's fairly new, but if you're in the construction space and you're interested in getting into the industry of drones and the theme of drones, I'd be saying, okay, let's look at construction to identify the use case and how you can best penetrate in those environments. And then pulling that away, and you're looking at, anyone's going to say, go buy a drone, go find a drone to fly and get trained. But I think it's maybe a little bit more than that. Try and find yourself a mentor, someone that can potentially mentor yourself through that environment. And I guess it's just with someone starting out in anything. And I've got myself personally from, anyone starting their own business. I've had some fantastic business mentors over the course of my last 10 years. And if it wasn't for those business mentors, I wouldn't be sitting in the seat that I'm sitting in today. And as much as you can go buy a drone, get trained and all that kind of stuff, that doesn't mean, excuse my language, shit until you actually have got someone guiding you in the right direction. And that's where I myself am happy to guide someone through in the right direction. I'm sure everyone's happy to give back a little bit, because if it wasn't for people giving to you originally, you wouldn't be sitting in the seat that you're sitting in. So aligning yourself with an industry and aligning yourself with someone that is a mentor or a key stakeholder or something like that in the industry itself.
I mean, it's great that you said that. Part of, we all have our day jobs as like you, and we're all giving up time here, and this is all about helping the industry. As I think we all know that the growth is there, but we need to bring in the right people to help the industry grow, as you well pointed out. So, we love the fact that you're here giving up your time, and I think you brought a uniqueness across the three with airborne and ground and sub. So it'd be good to kind of get a better understanding of how these things are progressing over the next few months and years. I'm sure you'll be keen to come back on and chat. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
definitely.
Fantastic. All right.
And you left out the podcast for a learning tool, man. Is that another one you can throw in there?
I thought so. I wasn't responsible for plugging everything here, right? I've got 4 other people on this call. Surely you guys want to have
No, you can feel free.
No, I've got to say, it's educational environments like podcasts, like webinars, in particular that, I myself look to other podcasts to learn about other things, other environments, landborne, airborne, waterborne. I look to other podcasts myself, solar, random, I know, but, those sorts of things, I look to other podcasts themselves. But, these sorts of environments are fantastic. And, kudos to all you guys are coming together and giving up your personal time, because I think it is extremely valuable to people coming into industry to be able to listen to someone like myself, listen to other people that you've had on the podcast, to hear their perspective on the industry, hear their perspective of where things are going, because it might not be the industry that you're working in right now, but it might be potentially one of the vision points that I identified for 3, 5 and 10 years that you're like, okay, well, hang on, let me just see if I can evaluate what that potentially looks like. Remote operation centers. Okay, well, let me go and set up a remote operations center that can operate remote vehicles. I don't know, let me go buy property. I don't know what that is, but hey, that might be something that falls out of a conversation like this for someone as an idea and as a design thought. And I think that's extremely powerful.
Well, it's like you said, it's great to go, I like to be like him, having 35 guys, but they understand the pain over the last 9 or 10 years. So having access to that or insight into that is really good, which we haven't. And part of why we set this up was to get that local transparency to our communities. So
I think a lot of people paint a pretty picture about where they are and what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but you sort of don't hear about the 10-year growth period that, only in the last 3 years you've been able to actually make it happen or whatever it might be. And that's why I'm kind of here, is trying to expose people to that. It's not a overnight success thing. It does take a long time, especially if you're wanting to build a business and be somewhat successful, whatever you see successful as. But yeah, it's a tough one. I think a lot of us sort of think that it just happens overnight, but definitely doesn't.
It definitely doesn't happen overnight. And as much as I might be painting a pretty picture here, it hasn't been pretty. It's been a hard slog. It's been challenging. I'll probably end the note on the fact that, hey, last year I almost passed away. I had a bad motorbike accident. I got hit head on by a motor vehicle, broke my back, broke my face, lacerated my liver. I absolutely destroyed my body. And I'm lucky to be here today. And to be honest, that for me, myself, was a big shift in my life. Like, okay, what's that balance look like? Because before that, there was no balance. I was pushing the boundaries of what work was. But if I stop and I reflect on what the last year has been, and to be honest, it was Monday, exactly 1 year ago, that I had that accident. If I have a look at what the last year has been compared to the last 10, I probably achieved more in the last year than what I achieved in the last 10. So actually having that life balance is something that for me, myself personally, has been a big eye-opener. And I think the people around me as well have benefited from having that life balance approach to everything, and entrusting and instilling that trust in other people is quite important. So,
well, we're happy you're still here with us. That's good.
Definitely.
It is good.
What's the typical day or week for you look like? I mean, what time does your morning start, and what's
great question, and I love communicating it. But for myself, I'm up at the best part of 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. I like training nice and early, whether I cycle or whether I go to the gym and train. I'm very fortunate enough to have, actually, start of last year, me and two other mates founded a cycling club, which now is the best part of 140 people strong, which is pretty cool. All local people, all local youth who played rugby once upon a time that hurt themselves and injured themselves that ended up cycling on a bike. So we've got a cycling club ride that rides on Thursdays and Tuesdays, and then Monday, Wednesday, Fridays I either swim or run or train or something like that. So that's what my mornings look like. So it's quite an early start. And for myself, for example, this morning I was in the office at about 7:30, just before everyone else gets in about 9. So have a good hour and a half for myself to have my coffee and just take a deep breath. And then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday for me, I cram all my whips in with all my team. And then Thursday, Friday, I kind of have time to work on my personal projects and strategy and direction stuff. So, to be honest, I finish my day reasonably early. I try to anyway, about 5 o'clock, I try and clock out. But obviously we're sitting here on this podcast giving back to an amazing community out there, and I don't have an issue in doing those sorts of things. And at the end of the day, it's your own business. You always got to give back into that environment, but always got to take. And if, again, reflecting on prior to my accident, I'll probably lunch at my desk, but now I'm actually taking my hour, going, sitting outside, sitting in the sun, having my lunch, taking a deep breath, people watching a little bit, trying to understand what's going on. Yeah.
The best part,
crying on your own so they don't see you.
No. Try and turn whips into lunches, but yeah.
So where is Sphere Drones sort of located? Are you New South Wales? Obviously, Danny's New South Wales, so you're obviously based in New South Wales, but do you have any other branches anywhere else?
Yeah, correct. So we've got New South Wales is where I grew up, live. The office, the warehouse is. We've got a team in Queensland, team in Victoria, team in WA. So SA, NT and Tasmania are the empty states of Sphere Drones. We don't have anyone sitting there in presence. But at the end of the day, in the nature of the environment that we're working in, everyone can kind of operate in all sorts of realms. But, the likes of COVID was actually quite valuable to us because obviously the New South Wales team couldn't necessarily travel up to Queensland. The Queensland guys couldn't necessarily travel down to New South Wales, which means that those business units actually became self-incubating. They actually had to hold their own. New South Wales was, for us, it was a good time to reconvene and reset, definitely. But we're located in the best part of Queensland, 4 of the 6 states. Is that right, guys?
Yep, I think so.
Yeah. 7.
We're no mathematicians here either.
Yeah, so we don't do.
I think there's 7, but
I think all of us were like, hang on, how many is there?
I think there's 1 territory, right? So there's 7 in total.
2 territories.
2 territories. There's always 1.
So is the bigger team Paris in New South Wales?
Yeah, correct. So New South Wales has got the larger group. Victoria's got 4. WA's got 4. But yeah, the larger groups in New South Wales. So and that's where our development stuff occurs. So our development and our product team are located in Sydney. So like in the regional location. So Victoria's where our software team is, which is awesome. But every other state has flight operations and account management. Is pretty much WA's marketing though. Yeah, we're kind of spread all over the place. We're not really agnostic of having everything in New South Wales. For me, myself, I've got no issues in remote operations and remote working. And as I said, we've got the platforms in play, Salesforce, Confluence. They manage everything on a day-to-day. Everything's transparent. Everyone's got their reports. Everyone's got their KPIs. Everyone's got their objectives and strategy docs that they need to abide by, and they've got their weekly whips with yours truly. So you don't do it as a bit of strife, but no, it's not that bad.
Awesome. Yeah, the visibility is there, which is good.
Exactly right. It's transparent. We're a transparent organisation. Celebrate our successes and learn from our failures. So.
So what, I guess maybe that might be an interesting one. What are some of the failures maybe you guys have faced?
Yeah, 100%. I'll call a couple out straight away. So no strategy plan, no nothing. We try to have a crack at going into WA probably 3.5, 4 years ago. That fell to shit. With no strategy, no process, no procedure as to how things would happen. We just had I had a stab in the dark. No one else had a stab in the dark. And yeah, that didn't work out too well for us. We ended up having 2 team members fall off out of a team of 3. But now, you have a look at WA now, it's grown back in numbers, and it's been a sustainable, structured approach there. In terms of other things, some of our key learnings is specifically around, process and procedure, not having the right process and procedure in place and not having the right plans of attack, and 90-day plans and 30 days and 60-day plans for new team members. Team members can become quite complacent in terms of, hey, what's my structure look like, all that kind of stuff. So it's been a key learning. Other failures. In our development team, there's been a number of failures. Communication is key. Is something keeps coming out on a regular basis. But we've got a call out policy at work that if you see something that's not kosher or not okay, call it out, and don't be scared. If you get pulled up for calling it out, then that's not okay. So I guess I'll have to think about failures or learnings. But definitely. I got to say the WA thing for me was a pretty substantial milestone in and amongst my business side of things that, I had a stab out there and it fell apart. So now we're good. WA's exceeding our New South Wales base, which is amazing. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Now I got a new challenge to get New South Wales firing more.
Yeah, no, exactly right. No, but it's amazing. Like between the Queensland team and the Victorian team, as well, like everyone's coming to play now, which is really, really good.
So I guess on the flip side, then, what are some of the wins that you would say is probably one of some of the most important things that have happened over your period of time?
For us, we managed 190 drones for surf lifesaving for the best part of 3.5, 4 years. We took their fleet from the best part of 5 drones all the way through to 190 drones. The credit to Surf Lifesaving, they went through their challenges themselves and they learned from their challenges. But at a time there, it was very unstructured and unstable from a business operations perspective. But our role and responsibility is maintained. And I feel that if it wasn't for our business and our organisation, they wouldn't be in the state that they're in today, which is fantastic. A lot of the fruits to our successes are coming through more recently, I've got to say. So for us as a business, we've had a lot of media and a lot of PR attention between the Australian over the course of the last 3 weeks. We've been in Channel 9, Channel 7 and a couple others like that. landing Boston Dynamics and Skydio is really like the fruits of our successes. They're both organisations. Skydio raised $130 million in January on $1 billion valuation. Skydio got bought by Hyundai for $1.2 billion. So we as a business are sitting as the conduit for them in the Australian market here in Australia, which for me, I just sit and stop and think about just those two facts in themselves is pretty unbelievable. If we have a look at, I don't really want to boast about it, but our Salesforce environment's probably one that, and our Salesforce infrastructure processes and all that is one that's probably superior to anyone else in the market. I can confidently say that because we're consulting to some of these Skydios and Boston Dynamics as to how to set up their Salesforce infrastructures. Salesforce have used us as a business case and a case study. But yeah, no, we've had some really good achievements, and it's humbling achievements really on our end because, you know, it's only really now that it's coming to light. I think our clients is some of our, who we're dealing with as organisations are where our fruits are in our successes. So
it's really cool.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. Fantastic. So we do this weird questionnaire at the end that we don't really tell anyone about until they're at this point of the podcast. So we call it 6 and 60 seconds. It's just 6 questions you got to answer in a minute. So nothing too bad, but they're a little bit random, which is the exciting part for everybody. So Danny, you got a timer?
Got the timer ready to go.
So you got to answer all 6 and 60, yeah?
All 6 and 60.
They're not that hard, mate.
They're not that hard.
Yeah. They're
like
one-word answers.
One-word answers,
All
yeah.
right, let's go.
All right, Danny, let us know.
And go.
What is your favourite drone?
I love the Matrice 300.
Okay. Favourite colour?
Red. My surname's Cockinos, so Greek, that means red.
Okay. Favourite ice cream?
Connoisseur cookies and cream.
Ooh. Okay. Your favourite car?
Porsche 911 GT3 RS.
Oh, nice car.
Exact.
Red, I presume.
100%.
Yeah. Star Wars or Star Trek?
I don't watch either of them, sorry.
That's fine.
Ty's disappointed. And the last one, who's your favourite host?
Favourite host?
Your 10 seconds.
I actually... Gone.
Yes.
I see how it is.
Did you see his head inflate a little bit?
There's a bottle of whiskey coming to you tomorrow.
When I come down to this
1 second to go.
Ooh, love
1
it.
second to
That's
go,
awesome.
you nailed it.
Oh, so what's that? 1 time, 1 Sean?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'll take that. I can retire now.
Start the game.
I was going to say, throw in what's the favourite motorbike since you raised your tragic incident?
So I myself own a KTM 350 EXC dirt bike. That thing is it almost killed me quite literally.
So you were actually on the road on it?
Yeah, so I was riding in the Hawkesbury River, up the Hawkesbury River, which is northwestern New South Wales. Going around a corner, got hit by an oncoming car head on. So wrote that motorbike off and rebuilt it actually. So rebuilt the bike and back on. I was down in Wagga last week, down on one of the properties, and it was really, really nice to get back on the dirt bike. But and I love the thing. It's got a bit of kick to it.
Bit of a kick.
You should be getting the Skydio chasing you. That's what it's made for, isn't it?
Oh, I don't know if we could keep up, but sure.
Next challenge. We're waiting for that video.
There we go.
Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again, Paris, for jumping on. We appreciate you giving us an hour of your time, and hopefully everyone listening has gotten something out of this podcast. But before we wrap up, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you? LinkedIn, emails, whatever you want.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm not the type to give my mobile out to everyone.
Don't.
Other than on
do
Saturday night. But LinkedIn is definitely my point of call for anything relating to business. I'm happy to chat to people on there, and they'll end up with my mobile number or an email address for sure. But even if you were to just jump on our website, spheredrones.com.au. We've got a chat in the bottom right-hand corner, which is manned by 2 of our team members on a regular basis. So if there's any questions, queries, or anything like that, jump on there. You'll get answered. Their KPI is about 5 minutes. So if you don't get answered in 5 minutes, let me know. But yeah, if LinkedIn's my point of call. So happy for that. Or my email address, paris@spheredrones.com.au. So
fantastic. Awesome. All right. Well, thanks again. And thanks, guys. We'll see you on the next one.
Thanks, Paris.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
Good night.